What up, people? Episode 92, Wake and Rake Podcast, all part of the Believe Network. Danny Vietti, moi, Will Middlebrooks, nah. Middlebrooks is out. He's enjoying some time in the Georgia area up at the lake house, cabin house. You guys got too many houses for me to count. I'm doing fine in my one, but Willie's having a good time with the fam up there. It's okay. We're going to fill the void with a hell of a guest. I've been looking forward to this for a week and a half ever since we got it set up here. How about a former number one overall draft pick back in 2013, labeled by multiple media outlets as the biggest draft bust in Major League Baseball. He didn't give a shit. He made it to the big leagues anyways. Mark Appel is going to be joining the Wake and Rake podcast. Pitched for the Philadelphia Phillies last year after the remarkable comeback story. Again, former number one overall pick. Chris Bryant was chosen behind him, number 2 in the draft. Appel was actually drafted 3 different times, which we'll touch on once we get him on here. But Appel, a guy that has had 3 different surgeries on his arm. Injuries really derailed much of his early career. He actually walked away from baseball after 2018, again, after being the number 1 overall pick, a $6+ million signing bonus for Mark Appel. And he walked away completely from baseball for more than 2 years. All of a sudden, Mark Appel decides, you know what? I miss playing the game. I miss being with the guys. I miss competing. Let's give it one last shot. So Mark Appel in 2021 decides to make a comeback attempt. He signs a minor league contract with the Philadelphia Phillies, tries to resurrect his career, goes into the bullpen, and actually finds himself a role in AAA with the Phillies in 2021 and 2022. And in 2022, to the surprise of everybody, a guy that quit baseball altogether just a few years prior, made it to the big leagues. Finally, 10 years after he had gotten drafted. He got drafted in 2013. He finally made it here in 2022. So nearly a decade after getting drafted for the 3rd time, Mark Appel finally made it to the big leagues with the Philadelphia Phillies, had a scoreless outing, picked up a strikeout, and his career ERA is actually sub-2 because he made a few more appearances after that. So I've been looking forward to this interview for a long time. Mark now is working toward getting back for the 2024 season. He just had another surgery this past April, so on his elbow. So Mark's not giving up again. I mean, his story is as unique as they come. Thank you guys so much for spending another day here with the Wake and Rake podcast, another 30, 40 minutes with us as the All-Star break continues. BetOnline is your number 1 source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. Let's bring in Mark Appel. Stop waiting around. Let's get the guy, the main man, the main event of the show, Mark Appel, joining the Wake and Rake podcast. Mark Appel, more than a decade playing professional baseball, a few more years at Stanford. Hey, Mark, give us an update because I know that you're on a long recovery road back from the elbow surgery that you had. So how's recovery going? How's the 2023 year going for you? What's an update on you? How's your health? How's life?
Man, life is pretty good. It isn't what I was expecting for 2023. But I found a way to find good in just kind of every circumstance I find myself in. Just trying to stay positive. So yeah, I had surgery back in April and just kind of on the mend, and it's been kind of a slow process of rehab and PT, and for anyone who's had a procedure, and it's just it keeps you out from kind of the normal rhythms and routines of your life. And so it's like going full steam ahead in spring training, and then getting hurt and getting released and moving back home. And I'm like, man, the pace is a lot different right now. So it's taken a little bit of an adjustment. In all honesty, just getting back, trying to build up some momentum to try to, I haven't been cleared to start throwing yet. So pretty sure. I don't think there's a chance that I can play this season just because, I got to build up my arm. So I'm looking at, potentially some opportunities this winter, and hopefully, definitely looking for an opportunity for next spring. to try to play in the 24 season. So, that's kind of where I am right now. It feels like there's a lot that's uncertain in my life. I've had a long go at it. Haven't had a lot of time in the big leagues. I've had a lot of surgery. So, I'd just be, I feel really blessed if I had an opportunity somewhere to try to show up and make a team in spring training. So we'll see if that happens. But for now, I'm enjoying time with my family and working out and trying to get my body right so that I can, try to go out and compete again.
This surgery number 3.
It's my third on this whole
On the
right side of my
shoulder.
body. Yeah. So I had a shoulder surgery in 2018. I had elbow surgery in 2016, bone chips, bone spurs, and then this is another elbow surgery, kind of an arthroscopic cleanup of the joint. Had some soft tissue that's just kind of getting in the way, and basically since last August or September, it's been an issue, and I thought we had it figured out going into spring training, and I felt really good, and then maybe 4 weeks into spring training, it's like starting to get worse and worse and worse. And then, so every time out, it's like, all right, I'm expecting it to get better, and it's not. And by my last game with the Phillies in spring training, my velo was way down. I couldn't throw strikes. My elbow was like swollen, and I'm like, even if I want to like try to make this team, I'm not doing it because, it's like, I had to say something because I'm like, either I'm hurt or, if I keep trying to do this, I'm going to get hurt even more. Plus I'm not effective, so it's kind of a lose-lose. And so, but yeah, I mean, the Phillies have been great. Even after I've gotten released, like, communicating with them with insurance and things like that, making sure that I still got everything I need, and I'm taken care of here in Houston. So yeah, it's just a different pace. Haven't been watching a lot of baseball this year. Just trying to enjoy time with family because, for us that are playing, it's hard to come by during the season. So
You watch the Derby?
I watched a little bit of it. I watched the last round. I was actually last night I was actually kind of meeting with some high school and college baseball players on Zoom, just trying to, talk to them, help them out. Writing has been something that I've gotten into a little bit this year. And, the internet's a crazy thing. It's like I can post something and, it can get shared around the world, and, who knows who's going to read it. And so like every time I wrote something, it's like something that I wrote resonated with, a few players, and they reached out and like, man, I'm dealing with injuries. I'm dealing with all of these things. Like, do you have any pointers? And like, my heart wants to help, but it's, time is our biggest limiter. And so I'm like, man, I there's nothing really that I can do, unfortunately. But yeah, recently I have started to try because I've had more time. I'm like, man, I'd love to try to just meet with a few guys, and how, like, I don't know how I'm picking them. I'm just like trying to set up, these Zoom calls and just talk to them. And so, yeah, last night was the first night that I got to do that, which is funny because I didn't even think about the home run derby. I love the home run derby. Like, it's so fun with the new format. And so I watched all the highlights and so it was like pretty exciting. So, but yeah.
Dude, I love what you're doing because, first of all, you have a story unlike any others. Like, you have an unrivaled, unique past of being a former number 1 overall pick, being traded over to the Phillies, spending nearly a decade in the minor leagues, having a couple surgeries, coming back. It hasn't been easy, I wouldn't say. But what you've gone through has inspired even players like myself. Like, I originally went to Division I college, University of San Francisco. I don't know if you know Nino and Giartano and those guys over there, because I know you grew up in the East Bay, but I really enjoyed those guys. It's just I pitched like shit. I got a little bit of the yips. I wasn't throwing hard. I wasn't throwing strikes. I think a lot of pitchers have been there. And so seeing other people struggle and going through those similar mental battles can kind of help people along. I ended up going to a small NAIA college, which I never in a million years thought I would ever want to do. Had the best time of my life. And so you now having this platform that you have, markappel.com, really enjoyed your ecosystem piece, by the way, about the wolves and culture
Yeah.
and what you're able to control and not able to control. You're able to like inspire people, which is regardless of what you have and have not done, that's a platform that really no other player has. Your story, it is unique to yourself. And I find that super inspirational.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It means a lot. It's weird because it's like sometimes I talk about like my story as if I'm talking about someone else, which I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. Like, it's like I remember a conversation I had back in 2021, and one of the guys we were just talking mechanics and talking about all these things, and I'm like looking at some video, and it's like, well, tell me about like when you were feeling best. I'm like, well, that was like maybe my senior year of college. I like was about to be drafted first overall, and it's like I pulled up some of those stats, and I'm like, yeah, I went 9 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 15 strikeouts. This game I went, it's like listing off all of these games. Like I feel like I'm talking about someone else because I haven't done that in forever. Like this is wild. But what I've realized is that that everyone has a story, and the power to inspire people is through telling your story. And so like what I've been trying to do is just like figure out how to tell my story in different ways that might resonate with different types of people. I think of myself as like I like this some sort of like creative side of me that wants to you know like iron that out, like try to figure that out, develop these skills of writing and storytelling and things like that. And I'm like, well, I don't have anyone else's story to tell except mine. And maybe in the future, it's like, who knows what this turns into? But I'm like, man, if I can create like just an authentic, message, and try to attract people that are interested in different stories. And I know there's a lot of baseball players that like read my stuff and they'll reach out. And then there's Philly fans, Houston fans, just general people that come across my stuff on Twitter or whatever, and they'll like reach out after I send a post or anything like that. And like it means a lot because I'm like, I never imagined that the words that I share might actually mean something to other people, and like that's super humbling because like I'm like, if you were to know me and like if we were to be good friends, like I'm just like another guy. It's like I'm just Mark. Like I got issues just like everyone else. I'm anxious about a lot of other things. I'm trying to figure out like the best way to live my life, and what should I do for work if baseball doesn't work out. And it's like I I got all of these things going on too. It just happens that I was also the first overall pick, and I've been trying to play baseball for a long time. And I made my debut last year after 9+ years, and three and a half years of not playing baseball and injuries and all of this stuff. And so it's like, the peripherals are the ones that are the things, the highlight points of my story are the things that bring people in. They're like, whoa, that's unique, that's interesting. And then hopefully like how I express myself and the authenticity that I share with is what hopefully keeps people staying around to read my writing. And the goal, like I'm not trying to, like if I could turn this into a career after baseball, it's like maybe that would be really cool. I don't know what that looks like, but just my desire is just to help people, and I think the best way to do that is just through storytelling and through sharing our experiences. A lot of people think like with the Reformations, like it's all education, it's how you think, it's all this stuff. But I'm like, man, I'm actually changed most. I was talking to one of these kids yesterday, and I was like, there's just people in our lives that you spend time with, and you're like, whatever they have, like whatever they have something that I kind of want, and it's hard. Like I can't really ask them about it because it seems like it permeates their entire life, And so I'm like, I actually just want to spend time with them, and maybe whatever that is, like will rub off on me. It's like the whole like you are who your friends are, and like choose your friends wisely, all that stuff. And so I'm like, I think that we grow most in relationship and in community. And so that's what I'm trying to do here. It's like, I mean, I don't have the time to spend time with a lot of people, but if I can try to communicate who I am and what I'm about, and my story with other people through my writing, it's like that seems like a pretty good thing to try to do. So that's kind of where where it all started, and who knows where it'll go.
Surround yourself with good people, right? Like my pops started telling me that when I was 5 years old. Surround yourself with good people, you'll wound up in pretty good situations, pretty much. But okay, that leads me to kind of my next question, though. Like, surrounding yourself with good people, surrounding yourself with the right situations. How the hell did you get back to playing baseball? You took, was it 2 or 3 years off? Why?
Yeah.
Like for what reason? I know you mentioned in another article by Bleacher Report, you were talking about the love of the game. Was there anyone that like inspired you, or was it more so just internal drive? Like, I got to prove it to myself. I have to prove it to the haters, if you will. Like what was it that drove you back to the game?
Yeah, man, that's a great question. So like I grew up, playing Little League baseball, probably just like most people. And like, there was just like a purity of the game. Like when you're a kid that you just fall in love with it. You're like, I love it because it's fun. I love it because I'm with my friends. I love it because I get to be outside. I get to play a game. I get to try to compete, all of these things that like draw us in to play this game. And then somewhere along the lines, it becomes this thing that it's like, well, man, I gotta get a college scholarship, and then I gotta, I'm looking at pro ball, and now it's a business, and it's like there's expectations. Everyone's got an opinion about who I should be and how I should play and what I should do and all of this stuff.
Like transactional.
Yeah, exactly. And so all of these things start kind of weighing you down, and like I didn't realize how much some of those things were weighing me down, especially after I was drafted. Like, there's just a lot of pressure being kind of that guy, right? And, the draft happened, 2 days ago. And so it's like some of these guys are now going into pro ball, and like, it feels like the spotlight is big and bright on them right now. And it might feel like that for most of their career. But like at the end of the day, it's like, what is their why? What is your why? Is like why you're doing what you're doing. Like, is it just for money? Well, if it's for money, it's like, well, either you're going to get all the money that you want and you're going to end up having a decent career, and you might not be satisfied with any of your relationships that you have because you've been chasing the bag your whole life. If it's for fame, it might be the same thing at some time. Even if you have the best career, like, your career will be over and people will forget about you. Like, that's just how it goes, in 100 years, 200 years. Like, all right, we talk about Babe Ruth, right? It's like, that's one guy. It's like, you can mention all the Hall of Famers from Babe Ruth's era. It's like, I don't even know most of them, it's just like, because no one really talks, like, you just forget about it, and so it's like, what's your why in playing? And for me, what I realized was that, man, like, my why kind of got off. I'm a people pleaser by nature. And so it's like, I wanted to do things that made people happy, like whether it's my coaches, my teammates. And when I got drafted, then it's like everyone had an opinion. I couldn't cater to all people all at the same time. And it was just overwhelming. Plus, I had my own issues that I was trying to deal with too, that no one else was involved with. And so that time away from the game got me back to this place of just like remembering why I loved baseball in the first place, and then making a decision like, hey, if I play this game again, I'm going to be playing it for that reason, And one of the big reasons for me is just the relationships. Like, I'm a people person. I love being around people. I love meeting people. I love developing relationships with people. And there's no more diverse place to make friends than in a baseball locker room. It's like the people that you meet, it's like we have one common goal, but beyond that, it's like our lives are wildly different, but we can bond over this common thing. And then we get to know who we are away from the field, and like, hey, tell me about your family. Tell me about your upbringing. Like, all like that stuff excites me, And so it's like, man, if I could figure out how to play this game again and be healthy, then I would love to do that. I think another thing for me was just getting to play, getting to compete. I didn't feel like I had been able to do that for so long without this anxiety of feeling like, man, I'm hurt. like things don't feel right. I need surgery. I have surgery. I come back. Things still don't feel right. You know, it's like one thing after another. I'm like, what would it be like just to play the game for the fun of it, for the love of it, getting to just like compete, even if I suck, you know, but not having the anxiety of like, am I enough? Am I doing enough? Am I working hard enough? Like, will my shoulder or my elbow be able to like withstand the you know, the strains of a season? And so like all of those things were kind of like this internal, like, this is kind of what I want. But then I have no idea if that's even possible. But right now it's worth trying. And so let me see if I can do that. And I mean, I was even thinking this morning, I'm like, I mean, I was filled with so much doubt in that time. It's like, am I even, this is stupid. I'm like, I'm spending 2.5, 3 years rehabbing on my own, out of my own pocket, just to try to play this game. And it's like, I don't even know if anyone still wants me, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, this is, you know, but I wasn't doing it for other people. I was doing it because I wanted to, and I loved it. And I wanted to be back in the clubhouse and get to put a jersey on again and get a step on the mound and like have someone in the box, you know, and compete. It's like, just that I missed that feeling a whole lot. And so like the last 2 years were honestly incredible that I got to do that. I got to do that again. And then I got to do it at the highest level, which I never imagined that would actually happen when I started the comeback, you know.
You didn't think you'd make it back, huh?
Well, I mean, I had never made it to the big leagues in the first place. And so right. I'm like, what logic, what world of logic can I have that says, oh yeah, you know, if I take like 3 years off and then like come back, it's like, yeah, I think there's a good chance I can make it to the big league. Like, as a career 5 ERA minor league pitcher, it's like no, you know. And so yeah, like what happened last year was just like, I mean, it was really special, but it was also really surprising. And I tell people that, I'm like, they're like, man, you must have just had so much confidence in yourself and so much belief. I'm like, actually, not really. It's like, I kind of surprised myself a little bit, you know? But I got to enjoy every minute of it. And I think that was like the most special thing for me, was just that, man, I got to experience probably more joy in a couple months in the big leagues, and even in the months leading up to that, than I might have if everything worked out according to my plan, because I had put so much pressure on myself early in my career, you know.
You almost got a ring. It's that close.
Well, hey, we won the National League, so they still gave us a ring, but no World Series ring. And here I am in Houston, you know, the team that drafted me in my hometown and the team that beat us in the World Series. So everywhere I go, I see Astros hats and Astros, and I'm like, if only people knew, you know.
Dude, you got to be careful. Those Philly fans, they can be a bit relentless.
Oh yeah. Well, the funny thing is, and I haven't told this story too many times, is that I have a friend at my church here in Houston, and he's from Philadelphia, and he's a huge Phillies fan, and he's classic Phillies fan, like every stereotype of a Phillies fan. Like, this is that guy. And we became friends when I wasn't playing baseball in those years where I was out of the game. And so so there'd be times like as I was coming back, and once I was back in AAA and then got called up, and he would like text me, and by then I felt like I had a playbook on how the Philly fans work, you know. I'm like, oh, this is great. Like, most of them are just incredibly kind people. They're very passionate. But like, if you call them out on their, like, you know, on their foolishness, they actually respect that, you know, and they would actually appreciate, like, they like being like pushed back on. And then I think they just love people that are like willing to admit their faults, be honest, be vulnerable, and work hard. And like, that's what I got to do. It's like, you know, just coming out in front, I'm just like, hey, I was really good, and I came out with really high expectation, and I sucked. Like, I failed. Yeah, I'm a bust. Who cares? But I'm still here, and I'm still doing it, you know? And like that kind of feels like the ethic of Philadelphia. You know, they're like, hey, we don't care what's happened in the past. Like, we're still showing up. We're still doing it. And so, like, I don't know. I feel like I got along really well with Philly fans. So it was good.
Did you talk with Reese a little bit about that at all? Because Reese also from Sacramento, which is where I live. And we
Yeah.
had him on the podcast. I think it was like a year and a half ago. And we were just chatting it up about like the difference between fan bases in California and the West Coast in general, and then fan bases in Philadelphia. And Reese was like, he was basically like, I love it here. Like it's no offense to the California fan bases, but it's just like a little bit more relaxed. Whereas like Philadelphia fan bases, East Coast fan, Boston, New York.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's a lot of pressure, but there is nothing more prideful than like showing out for those fans, because when you do have success, you get built up just as much as you get built or broken back down when you fail.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, I know the Phillies PR team would use the Alec Boehm situation last year where, you know, he's like, he makes 3 errors in a game, and you can see him mouthing on TV, like it's close up of his face. And he's like, I effing hate this place, you know, because they're booing him. They're booing him on every single at bat, every single throw, all this stuff, you know, and the sarcastic cheers when he finally makes a play, all that stuff. And after the game, of course, the media is like, Alec, hey, what do you mean by this? Like, the fans want to know. And he goes like, did I say it? Yes. Did I mean it? No. I've been working hard. I'm frustrated. I feel like I'm not doing my job, but like, I'm still working. I'm still trying. Like, I'm, you know, doing this. And then the very next day he gets in that bat and it's like standing ovation. And it wasn't sarcastic. It's like, this is our guy. Like, we love you, you know? And that's like a perfect way to deal with fans in Philadelphia. Like, they're going to let you know their displeasure, but if you're humble and honest about it, they're also going to support you, knowing like, as long as they know that you care, then like they're going to care about you. And I think that's one of the key differences. Is like, it's like rooted in it's like in their blood. It's part of their identity. It's like their heritage. You know, and I think that's true a lot on the East Coast. And, you know, there's fans in every fan base that feels that way. But like, by and large, it's like, you know, it's on a different level.
Have you ever done the whole like hypothetical what ifs? Like, what if you weren't the number one pick? What if you you got drafted 3 different times, for people that don't know, which is outrageous. Like that's even just goes more into your story. Drafted 3 times. Like, what if you had taken the Pirates offer the year prior at number 8 overall, or it was the Tigers in the 15th round out of high school, I believe?
Yeah, out of high school. Yeah.
Have you ever done like the what ifs, like, or even like when you actually accepted the offer from Houston? What if the Astros had taken Chris Bryant, who went number 2? What if the Astros went Chris Bryant number 1 and you went 2 to the Cubs? Or maybe you fell even further. Have you ever done the like what ifs?
Yeah. You know, it's funny to play the hypothetical game, just because you're like, oh, that, you know, that seems like it could have really changed, you know, a lot of things. You know, it's like, who knows? It's like, maybe if the Astros take Bryant and Cubs take me, it's like, maybe Cubs don't win a World Series, you know. It's like,
or maybe they do. Maybe they get another arm in the pin.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah, that's right. You know, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to say, because it's like, obviously I had a great 2013 at Stanford, and so it's like, who knows? Maybe if I go with Pittsburgh and I pitch that well, because really in 2014, that's when a lot of my injuries like started to feel things. And it wasn't until 2016 that I had surgery, but it's like I was battling through stuff, and so I'm like, you know, it's hard for me to like go back in time and like, you know, put my finger on exactly what was the thing, you know, if everyone's like, what happened to Mark? Like, why didn't Mark pan out? It's like, I don't think there's one thing. I think there's like a bunch of different little things that all added up to just Mark struggling in pro ball. And so, but yeah, it's funny because, you know, that 2012 draft was really interesting. You know, and obviously it's like, I ended up, you know, like in 2012, it was, you know, basically the Astros were choosing between me and Carlos Correa, and they picked Carlos, and because he signed for under slot, they also signed like Lance McCullers, you know, and I've talked to Lance because he was with the Astros, and then the next year I was there, and so like I got to know these guys, and so Lance was telling me his draft story, and he's like, oh yeah, I was supposed to go like to the A's. And then when Carlos signed, I got a call saying like, I'm going to get more money from the Astros at 41 than I will from the A's at 12. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to do that, you know? And so I'm like, just that decision that the Astros made, and just however all the dominoes fell, in a totally different way than, maybe what everyone was expecting. And then that had dominoes that would fall in 2013 and so on and so forth. And so this is true going all the way back, like, the butterfly effect or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super interesting to think about. But from my own perspective, it's like, I don't have any regrets. Like, I know I showed up every day and gave the best that I could, kind of with whatever I had that day. And there were a lot of days where I didn't have a whole lot to give. Whether it's just bad physical health, like, man, my arm's all jacked up and I'm trying right now. Or just like, man, I'm emotionally and spiritually drained. Like, I'm depressed. I have nothing to bring to the field today other than just like, I can show up. And that's a tough place to be, because there's a lot of shame that can set in when you're going through like a really rough season. We're like, man, I should be working hard and I'm trying to do all this stuff and I'm giving a best effort. Like, it's like, I think anyone who's been depressed goes through a day. It's like, I didn't do anything, but I feel exhausted by the end of the day, and you're like, yeah, I used to not really understand that. And I understand it a whole lot now. And so, everyone's got something going on. But
check on your people. Always check on your people.
100%. Like, you never know what someone's going through. So we all need a little bit more love in this world, for sure.
Yeah. So I lived in Fresno for a year and a half because my wife, she had to accept the job. I say had to because nobody actually chooses to live in Fresno, California. It's just like out of obligation. So I know you hated Lancaster, California. That's not a good place. How did you like Fresno, California?
Fresno was all right. I mean, we won a AAA national championship, so it's like, it's always more fun when you're winning. And I was pitching pretty well at that time. So yeah, I mean, that team was really good too. So, yeah, but I think I lived up in Folsom. So, or no, not Folsom. What's the town just north? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
It's been a minute for me.
Folsom is like up by where you are.
Sacramento. I was going to say that's a hell of a commute, Mark.
No, definitely not. What was it?
We lived up near like Woodward Park area. That's where we were at.
Okay. Clovis.
Clovis. Yeah.
That's
good. That's a good area.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's got food, grocery stores, all that stuff. So, no, I was only there for a couple months, so
okay,
it's hard to tell. Yeah,
fair enough.
But it was hot. It was really hot. And yeah, the ballpark there was massive too. Took Chansey Park, and like 20,000 people. It's like we got like maybe 3,000 or 4,000 a night, and like that was a really good crowd. And then they did like a taco Tuesday, and it's like we had a game and it's like taco trucks and there's like 25,000 people there. We're like, what the heck? This makes no sense. We can't get anyone to show up on a Friday or Saturday when they do fireworks, but you put taco trucks up in the concourse and literally the entire Central Valley shows up. It's crazy.
The food is surprisingly decent there because like we were expecting terrible sushi. We ended up finding a really solid sushi spot. Food trucks are everywhere down there.
Everywhere.
The food trucks are like, that's like the best quality food you can get there too. Like if you're looking to take your girl out for your anniversary, don't take her to a 5-star restaurant. You take her to a taco truck. You take her to a Mediterranean truck or something. Like that's just the way it goes in Fresno.
That's right. It's authentic food. You're getting the highest quality stuff and it's coming sloppy and delicious. It's great. Yeah.
Okay. Take me inside the negotiations with Philly when you re-signed with them. There had to have been some questions on both ends, right? Because you had previously gotten released by Philly 2 years, 3 years prior. So
yeah,
how did that come to fruition?
Yeah. So actually, so you're talking back in 2021 when I came back.
Right.
Yeah. So when it's funny, that Bleacher Report article that came out, it was written by June Lee, who he was actually part of the ESPN layoffs, unfortunately. But he's a really talented writer, and I met him back in 2013 after I signed, and he was just a journalism student. and I met him and I like really connected with him. And so he reached out to me and he's like, hey, I have this idea for 2018 spring training. It's like obviously you haven't had the career that you hoped, but you still have faith in God. And so it's like everyone talks about, it's like, oh, this is how faith in God helps me play better. It's like that, like those are the easy stories to write. He's like, I want to write a story about like, how has your faith in God affected you and helped you when you haven't been playing well? And like, where is your faith and all that stuff? And so I was like, yeah, I'm interested, except I'm not going to be at spring training. Like I had already made my decision by then. And he goes, oh, let me talk to my editor. And so he reaches back out and he's like, all right, like I got approved. I'm going to fly down to Houston and write a story about this. Like this kind of a big deal. Like, are you okay with that? I was like, yeah, that's great. And I just said I want to call the Phillies before it's published because I don't want them to find out, because I didn't talk to them yet, but I had made the decision just like amongst me and my family. And so I wanted to give it a couple of weeks just to make sure it was like legitimate, and it was. And so once the article was written, I called the Phillies and talked to the GM, and he's like, hey, I mean, he wasn't. I think he was a little surprised, but he wasn't like shocked. He's like, hey, I get it. Like we've been around you, we know how things have gone for you, and we just want to see you like healthy as a person. So like what we're going to do is we're going to put you on the restricted list. And, so I'm like, okay, like, I don't really know what that means. So I called my agent and I'm like, hey, what is this restricted list? And he goes, well, most of the time teams will put guys on it that are going through like off the field issues. Usually it's like drug or alcohol related, and they put them on the list. And it basically hits the pause button on your contract, on your time, service time, all of that stuff. So it just hits the pause button. You're like, and what it means is that I'm restricted to sign with any other team unless the Phillies release me. So they basically maintain my rights and hit the pause button on like my minor league contract. So when I came back in 2021, the Phillies were the only team I could sign with.
Gotcha.
And so it's actually pretty interesting because they were like, hey, we don't know exactly what the future holds, but we still want you to be a part of our organization if you ever want to play again.
That's
which
awesome.
like it meant a lot, it meant a lot. And by then, the front office had changed a little bit. And so I reconnected with the powers, that be, and just kind of explained where I was and wanted to make sure that all the paperwork with MLB could be done by the time, the first game of the season of the 2021 season had started, so that I'd be eligible to play, And so they got me back in the lines of communication, and I showed up to spring training, and that was the first spring training after COVID for minor league baseball.
Yeah.
And so what they did, they had the major league season, spring training, and then they started the major league season, and then minor league camp showed up. So like there wasn't an overlap. So it really wasn't until 2022 when I got to see a lot of these other guys that I had played with, coming through the Philly system, like Aaron Nola and Zach Eflin and Reese and, a lot of these other guys. And so, yeah, I mean, it was kind of wild, but man, it was just a really, really good experience. Like I have nothing but wonderful things to say about the Phillies organization. And like, I honestly feel really lucky that I got to be a part of, what they're doing. And especially last year is like such a special season for so many guys. So, yeah.
They had a whole front office change too from the first time that you were with them. And then when you came back in 2021, like you have a whole new regime. So that kind of adds on to the point of like, these guys still believed in you and still had faith that you could make it back, which is pretty cool. It's funny how the narrative changes from this guy's a bust, this guy will never make it, this guy's a chump, this guy sucks, to the entire country was literally rooting for you last year. It's funny.
I don't get it. I think who knows like why or how that happened, but other than like I've just been willing to share my story authentically and like not I don't shy away from like the hard times of my life. It's like it is like what has happened has happened. Like I can't change that. All I can do is like learn from it and grow from it and try to be better. I think I think that applies to literally everything that we go through that's kind of hard or like uncomfortable or whatever. And that's just kind of how I live my life. So I'm like, all right. And even now I'm like in the middle of this season of, all right, I don't know what the future looks like. I'm almost 32 years old. I've had 6 appearances in the big leagues. I've had 4 surgeries. I have no idea if I even have any more value to any organization out there. It's like, do I keep playing, or do I, maybe think about not like just being like, man, I've had a wonderful career. I don't think anyone on paper would say that, but in my heart, like I know I've had a wonderful career, met incredible people, gotten to experience things that people would give their right arm to experience, and like if it were all over, I have a lot of peace with that. So I'm just trying to, I'm in the season trying to figure all of that out right now.
Final question for you as we kind of wrap things up here.
Yeah.
Has any former high draft picks reached out to you and just been like, hey, because I know you're talking with high schoolers, you're talking with college players, they're asking you for advice. Has there been any formerly high prospects be like, hey, Mark, how do I deal with what's about to happen to me?
No, honestly, there haven't been. I'm more than happy to talk to guys, but I'm not going to try to like knock on doors and be like, hey, you need to, as I get it too, because it's like when you get drafted, like you feel like you're on the top of the world. You feel like you got the whole world figured out, and I think it takes another level of maturity, and maturity that honestly, like no one would expect an 18 or 21-year-old older to be able to go like, all right, I want to try to just do this well. And if there's any like, pitfalls or traps that I might fall into because of just the pressure and the magnitude and all of this, like I want to try to avoid those things. And like, there's probably a lot of guys out there that, were able to avoid those things and have had good careers. It's just like my struggles have seemed to be a little bit more public, and I'm okay with that, and if I can use that to help someone else out, it's like, that's the silver lining in everything. It's like, man, I actually have a story that actually might help someone, not in just like this, oh yeah, like I heard about this one time. It's like, no, I like maybe actually get to change the course of some kid's life because they're going through something, and baseball has been their entire world, and they don't know who they are without baseball. And I'm like, hey, like you're so much more than baseball. And maybe that's what someone needs to hear, right? It's not the comfortable thing to hear, because at the end of the day, it's like, if you're in the game, like you want to be the best that you can be, and you want to be the best that has ever been. It's just like the thing that drives us to compete, to play. But like you live that way, and you either get everything that you want, and you end up your life, having baseball become your full identity. And you ultimately, what I think, you'll just end up dissatisfied once baseball ends, or you do something a little different where you're like, I'm actually someone totally different than baseball, and this is just what happened. I just happen to play baseball, and this is my job, this is my career, and I love it, but I don't want it to define like me, like on a personal, like on a soul level, and I think I had lived in that place where, it did define me, maybe not fully, but to a way more weightier degree than it should have. And I've learned how to like, throw that off, like this isn't my identity, it's like, I know who I am, and like I'm so much more than just like whatever happened to me in baseball. And some guys really need to hear that, because like baseball's tough, and it's not forgiving, and it'll chew you up and spit you out. And if you let it destroy your relationships, if you let it destroy your family, if you start serving this god of baseball, like it's not gonna serve you back, it's not gonna help you. And so yeah, it's like a really humbling thing to be able to like communicate that in a way that people actually listen to and understand. And like, man, it's like cool. Maybe it's not how I planned my career going. It's like, I would love to, have a career like a Garrett Cole or someone else, and Garrett's a great guy. It's like, I don't think he's one of those guys that's like baseball is everything to him. Right.
Yeah.
But there's just, my story has just been a little bit rockier and had more ups and downs and twists and turns, and people are drawn to that a little bit.
So we've only been on here for like, I don't know, 35 minutes, and I've already lied to you twice because number one, I said this was going to take about 15, 20 minutes. We're already gone 35. And then secondly, on the last question I had, I said last question. So this really, truly is my final question here, because I know you got shit to do. Okay. Worst fan interaction that you had that you can remember from like the minor leagues? Because those guys that are 10 beers deep sitting in left field in the bullpen have zero filter whatsoever. Can you remember anything specific that just really rattled you at the time?
Oh man. The worst one for me has always been online, like on Twitter. So it's like, there's guys that get drunk and they start yelling and chirping and all that. It's like, you hear that every now and then. It's like the ones that were like the worst for me was like after I got drafted by the Pirates in 2012, and then I decided to go back to school. It's like, there are some like keyboard warriors in Pittsburgh that, and at like 20, I'm like trying to make a big decision that affects the rest of my life, and I make this decision and I'm happy with the decision and confident in it. And it's not that I wasn't excited about getting drafted or any of that. It's just like, I made the decision that I thought was best for me and my family. And obviously like fans feel like you have, spurned our team. And because you have spurned our team and I identify so deeply with our team, you have spurned me, and I am deeply offended by like the action of a 20-year-old college kid who like, has never met him. Right. And so it's like, people would just be like threatening my family and wishing the worst harm on me and my family and all of these things. And I'm like, there's a line where I'm like, all right, you can have some like fun banter and make fun of me. Like, I don't care. It's like, if I suck, you can tell me that. But it's like, when you start crossing the line, and it gets personal, it's like, I wasn't prepared for that too. I was maybe a little naive about how crazy the world is. But yeah, it was, that one was pretty hard.
Ignorance is bliss, my friend.
Ignorance is bliss. Just put them on. Like, I love the mute function. It's like, you can just put people on mute. It's like, whatever you say, I can't even see it.
Dude, some people like take pride in being blocked, which is the weirdest flex of all time.
So weird. It's like, what? Like, you're saying that you are so happy that you said things so vulgar that someone just didn't want to deal with you anymore. I'm like, it's. I don't know. Maybe there's a study in psychology that we could do just to like understand these people.
I don't want to try to understand Twitter trolls, man. That would take years.
It would, yeah. So anyways, but yeah, part of it is like, I know I can ramble sometimes. And so it's like, you said, hey, 15 minutes and you're asking me these great questions. Like, well, there's so much nuance and like I have to give so much context. So yeah. But man, I really enjoyed being on.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. Your story, like I said, has inspired me. Please do head over to markappel.com to our listeners. It's fascinating stuff. The stuff that you've gone through, the mental battles, the physical battles, unlike any other. So we can't thank you enough for joining us here on the pod, Mark. Just stay healthy, man. Come back. I'm really looking forward to seeing you back on the mound again and competing. No matter where it is, So it is great to meet you. Great to pick your brain a little bit. And if I haven't lost your complete trust in me yet, maybe we'll have you on at a later time, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll have to get Will on here too and jam on some stuff. But yeah, it's great meeting you, Danny. Thanks for having me on, man.